Well, thank you so much for joining us for Everything Under the Sun, the AccuWeather podcast. I'm Andy Robb from the AccuWeather Radio Network. I'm joined by executive producer Ken Prell. Regina Miller, not here this week.
Is she on vacation again?
She is on assignment, as like Evan says. Evan would call it. Yeah, she's on assignment this week. And, fall's right around the corner. Nice clear skies, so we're going to put our eyes to the sky this week, Ken.
Yeah, we're talking astronomy.
That's right.
So you're asking me to do this. A little bit my background here. The lowest grade I ever got in college was for an astronomy class.
Well, I think that we're going to have to re-educate you.
I'm an idiot in this subject. And I know it right away when I took the class, but there was a cute girl in the class, so that's why I stayed in there. So I didn't get any knowledge about astronomy, and I didn't get the girl either. So,
okay, well then, I'll tell you what. Today, we are going to get some information because we've got two guys.
So I'll get the knowledge today.
Exactly. We've got two guys in here that are experts with what they do with AccuWeather Astronomy. Who do we have with us today?
Dave Samuel. I'm a forecaster and also astronomy blogger here at AccuWeather.
And I'm Brian Leda. I'm also a forecaster and a journalist for AccuWeather.
Now, Dave has been on the show before. It's been a while since we've had him on Everything Under the Sun. Brian, with his first appearance ever on the podcast, so a big special welcome to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for this subject.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, so why don't we just jump in right into the basics? Let's start with you, Brian. With astronomy, how did you first get interested in it?
I've always loved NASA as a kid growing up, watching all the space shuttle launches and everything. And then I got interested in learning the missions to the different planets, missions to Mars, sending probes way deep into our solar system. And then that kind of just segued learning about our planets, learning about the solar system, and then the universe around us. So I'm always looking up at the sky and seeing the planets and constellations in the sky every single night I can.
That's awesome. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think it more or less came from my love of weather and looking at the sky. So just looking at the night sky was always fun. When, hey, no clouds to look at, might as well look at some planets and stars. So I've slowly, learned what I'm seeing out there. And, really, in college, it's funny you mentioned astronomy because I took an astronomy class in college, Ken, and it was really interesting for me. I loved it. So it was one of the best.
It was interesting, but everything was just way over my head, so.
But it was interesting. There's a lot of math in astronomy. Yeah. And similar to meteorology, but there wasn't as much calculus involved, at least in the class I took. But yeah, I think that really helped spur me on. And I've learned a lot since I became the astronomy blogger here at AccuWeather, and obviously Brian's done a whole lot with our the journalism aspect of it, and he's got to go on some cool trips to witness a few events and report on them. But so it's just a learning process every day. Learn a little bit more.
Brian, you mentioned about, space shuttle. I think that was, that's what really got me interested in it and made me want to take the class and that kind of stuff. Do you have an earliest memory of, really what, jumped out at you and said, this is what I want to, really study and look into?
One of the first things I remember as a kid was watching John Glenn go up on the space shuttle.
Okay.
I wasn't around the first time he went to space.
Yeah, that's
but
right. Yeah.
When he went back up on the space shuttle, I just remember following that mission every single day, everything that they were doing. And like I said, that just kind of segued into my love for astronomy. I've seen several rocket launches, one with SpaceX. And it was the first time they ever landed one of their rockets out in the ocean. And so it was awesome to be there, see a rocket launch, and see actually what goes behind some of the space exploration that NASA does.
Tell me a little bit about that. Okay, let's start with the rocket launch. I got to ask the question, how loud is it?
It's louder than you think.
Really?
You can't be right there where the rocket is because, if it explodes, bad things happen. But we were about 3 or 4 miles away. And so you see it start to take off and you don't hear anything. And then the sound waves hit you and it starts to rumble and the birds start flying everywhere. And I don't really know how to describe the sound, but it sticks with you. And even though the rocket launch that I saw happened during the daytime, the glow of the engine was just so incredibly bright. Like, I almost had to look away from it. And it was just an experience I'll never forget.
So let's say how many more times louder than, like, let's say a plane taking off at an airport? If you had to guess.
Several times louder.
Really?
Like I said, you could feel the rumble in your chest, even though you're 4 or 5 miles away.
So is that more so about it? As in, the sound, but yet that rumble that you're feeling, that probably takes over more than what you're actually hearing.
Exactly. You're not just seeing it; you're experiencing the rocket launch because you're seeing it, you're hearing it, and you're feeling it.
Wow.
And It's amazing.
Dave, what about one of your earliest memories?
Well, one of them was when I was here at AccuWeather on one of my first years. I worked the overnight shift, and we were talking to work like, oh, I hear there's a meteor shower tonight. Let's go check it out. Well, it was a 2001 Leonids meteor shower, and it turned into a meteor storm. It was the last really meteor storm we've had, and there were thousands of meteors in the sky that night, so way more than you typically get with a meteor shower. And just sat outside until dawn, just watching meteors, and you basically just look at the sky and you'd constantly see at least one, if not like 4 or 5 in the sky at the same time. They were zipping around all over the place. Unfortunately, all meteor showers aren't like that. I didn't realize how rare it was at the time, and it was
so
basically
didn't fully appreciate it at the time.
I didn't fully appreciate it. I thought it was awesome because I've seen like a handful of meteors, but never like thousands, like lighting up the sky.
Like that. Yeah,
and then I realized that was probably the best meteor shower I'll see in my lifetime. Unfortunately.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. I can only imagine. So that probably just really, that probably drove the whole thing forward and really, made you very passionate about seeing something that amazing.
It was cool. It was just such an experience, and to like be able to see that, and the fact it happened in November and it was clear in State College, which is unusual because it's usually cloudy here. Yeah. It was really cool. It was awesome.
It's interesting that you bring that up because, like earlier, you were saying, you watch the skies all the time because you're a meteorologist here, and you don't really think about the night sky. So it was probably like just, almost like a whole new world for you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, meteorology is certainly my first passion. So astronomy, I've been, becoming more and more interested in it as time wears on. So it's been a fun experience.
So let's talk about starting points, guys. Because, like Ken said, he's not well versed in astronomy, myself as well. If there's somebody listening right now, Brian, we'll start with you. If there's somebody that wants to learn about astronomy or finds a good starting point, what's one of the first things they should do?
One of the first things they should do is know that they don't need any equipment to start. You don't need a fancy telescope or anything to get into stargazing.
I think that's a big thing to really hit home.
Right, because
everybody thinks they need equipment to go out and go look at the night sky.
Exactly. I mean, having a telescope or a fancy camera might help, but you don't need that. Anyone could do it from their backyard. Obviously, light pollution is an issue. So if you're living in New York City, you might not see as many stars as if you're living in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. But you don't need anything. And so everyone has the tools to stargaze. The next thing I would say is you should try to find a star chart online to know what you're looking at, know where to see a planet, try to find different constellations.
Are there any sites that you like to go to or favorites that are out there?
I love earthsky.org. They have an article every night to tell you what to look for in the night sky.
Oh, very cool.
Wow. And we reference that a lot in some of our astronomy stories for AccuWeather.
Yeah, we've worked with them a lot and, used their information and shared it with our followers as well because they do excellent work. So
exactly. And there's plenty of websites and even apps out there for smartphones that have star charts on them. Mm-hmm. And some with your smartphone, if you just point it at the sky, it'll show you what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Then I could be a genius. Finally, I figured out how to be a smart guy about astronomy.
That's cool because that's actually my next question that I had with the star charts and websites that you go to. What's the learning curve like that for somebody that may want to explore that for the first time? Is it difficult?
It's mainly knowing what you're looking at and where you are. You know your geography, know what direction you're looking. So just like know if you're looking south, know where things rise and things set. Just like the sun rises and sets, that's where the planets rise and set. They all follow the same orbital plane. So the track the sun takes through the sky, well, the planets nearly follow that same exact track. And the moon more or less does as well. So, you can watch planets and the moon rise and know your moonrise time. It's one thing. The coolest thing is when you realize what the moon does in the night sky, because you look it up like, oh, how come there's no full moon tonight? I saw it a few nights ago. Well, the moon rises literally exactly 50 minutes to an hour later every day. So it's so that makes it interesting to look at. You can say, okay, now I know when to look for the moon, and you can see it and you see the phases change every night. So might be a good way to start, just tracking the moon across the sky, and then you could branch out from there.
So that's kind of like the basics, like just like knowing, so my question basically is there like a time it's easy enough where you're not just looking at the sky and you're like, well, I'm supposed to see it, and you find out that you're like turned around the other way? How often does something like that happen if you're like looking in the wrong direction?
Yeah, that's why knowing your direction is a good thing. So just to be aware where north, south, and east and west are. So in our latitude, in the mid-latitudes, the southern sky is what's mostly filled with the planets, at least, and the moon. It'll mostly be in the southern sky. If you're looking due north, you won't see that. But, I mean, of course, there's stars and things in the northern sky to check out. So just know your directions.
So would you recommend maybe like a compass or
a compass,
as a basic
compass
piece of
or
equipment?
even getting on Google Maps and you can hold your phone and it'll point to what direction you're looking at and you can see east and west on there. But I mean, most smartphones have a compass app too you can use.
Now, for people who are a little bit more into this equipment, what kind of equipment do you guys have?
I would say just keep it simple. Start if you want to branch out into using something besides your naked eyes. I would go with a set of binoculars. A decent set of binoculars. You can zoom in on the moon. And if you can hold them still enough, you can see Jupiter's moons. And that might be a good way to start before you start into telescope equipment, because sometimes using the telescopes it's a little tricky to line things up just right. But you get that free range of motion with binoculars. So,
yeah, certainly. I mean, binoculars are cheap and easy to use. Everyone's used them. So that's a good stepping stone before you get a telescope. And a telescope, it has a tripod, so it's set to the ground and steady. Binoculars, when you're holding them in your hands, they shake a little bit.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
it might be hard if you're trying to look at one specific thing. But with the most basic telescopes, when you point at the planet Jupiter, you could see its 4 largest moons, which I never get bored at looking at.
Really?
I've seen it 100 times, and I'll set up my telescope just to look at that.
Now, is there something new like you see every time, or
they change their positions? At least the moons of Jupiter.
Yeah. So Earth's moon, it takes 30 days roughly to go around the Earth.
Right.
Jupiter's moons, some of them it takes just a couple of hours. So if you step outside and set up your basic telescope and point at Jupiter and look at it, say 9 o'clock at night, and then look at it again at midnight, the moons are going to be in different places. And so you actually see, the mechanics of our solar system in motion.
That's pretty cool. That's really awesome, actually.
And it doesn't take a huge telescope to see those moons either, because Jupiter is a huge planet. So it's easy to find because it's pretty bright. And you just need a basic telescope.
So just any kind of basic telescope. Do you have a suggestion for somebody, especially somebody who's a beginner and maybe on a little bit of a budget?
Yeah, maybe don't spend too much. You can get a telescope for $20 at Walmart.
Really? So,
okay. Good job. Yeah. I mean, it'll be,
and it does the job?
That'll get the job done.
It does the job, at least to see the moons of Jupiter, some things like that are pretty easy to see. The moons of Jupiter are so large, we would be able to see them with the naked eye, but the Jupiter itself is so bright, it washes it out. So it's something you just zoom in a little bit and you can really see. So, and the planets, I think, are a great target for a telescope because they're brighter than any stars. If we were talking about Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter, they're brighter than any stars in the night sky. So they're easy to find.
That was one of the next questions that I had because, you look up at the sky to somebody that may not know too much. You're looking at the naked eye. It all kind of looks the same. How do you differentiate between different, star formations and planets?
This kind of goes back to the star charts, having the app on your phone. There's plenty out there. And so it helps you kind of orientate yourself to know what exactly you're looking at. Also, if you're tracking the moon, some nights it might be really close to a planet. So, 1 or 2 nights a month, it might be right next to Jupiter. It's really easy to find the moon. And then knowing that Jupiter would be next by, you could just find it that easily.
Kind of just go over a little bit.
Yeah, kind of use the moon as a reference.
And we usually alert people on our Facebook page and our Twitter page to when we see these, alignments with the moon next to a planet, because that's always cool to see. And, me and Brian have been getting out there with our cameras and trying to take pictures of it. So that's something I think both of us are learning.
How often do you guys go out and do this?
Maybe once a month or more often if there's an interesting event going on. So I think we're both in the learning process of how to, photograph the night sky. And it's kind of like a whole new world that's opening up to us as we start to do it. It's been really cool, but got some cool shots lately.
Yeah, night photography is definitely the next step after telescopes. If you get a camera that could take long exposure photos, 5, 10, 20 seconds, that's when you can start getting more detail. That's when you can take photos of the Milky Way and things like that. So that's a bit more a step into astronomy if you really get into it. It's taken me a couple years to kind of teach myself and learn the ins and outs of it, but then you get incredible night photos.
Very cool. Well, we're talking about, for beginners and what equipment to get, what apps to look at, what sites to look at. Let's get into the next step. We're heading into fall. A lot of cool events are happening, right?
Yeah, this is meteor shower season. There's a meteor shower every couple weeks, essentially. And the big one that I want to highlight is later in October. October 21st into the early morning of October 22nd, we have the Orion Meteor Shower. And this is going to be one of the best ones that we have in the next couple of weeks. We're going to expect around 20 meteors per hour.
Wow.
Which, you might take a couple minutes to see some, but they come in decent numbers. It takes time for your eyes to adjust to the dark. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes, so be patient. But when you start to see them, you'll know what they are.
How would you describe seeing, to somebody that's never seen a meteor before, in the best way that you can, how would you describe what it looks like?
So just imagine looking up at the night sky, just, stars speckling the sky, and just a quick streak. Okay. A lot faster than a plane. A plane you could watch slowly go across the sky blinking. This isn't going to blink. It's just going to be a fast streak across the sky. Usually it's white, and it'll really catch your eye.
And you're saying with this meteor shower, it's going to be more than just one streak across the sky. You're going to have several.
Yeah, and I know Dave was talking earlier about the meteor shower that he saw where he was seeing a couple of them per minute.
Yep.
That's not going to be the case with this. It's going to be a bit slower, so you definitely need to be patient.
But still, 20 an hour is, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a nice night out there looking at that.
Yeah, you're talking about, one every couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, especially if you've never watched a meteor shower, it's something to behold.
Are they all usually in the same location, or are they scattered throughout different areas, or how does that work?
So this is one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to meteor showers. People think that they need to look in a specific part of the sky.
That's what I thought.
Everyone says, "Oh, where do I need to look?" Just look up.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all. And it sounds like I'm trying to make a joke, but it's really the case. Yeah. Meteors, no matter what meteor shower it is, they're always visible anywhere in the night sky.
Yeah, the key is just getting as much of the sky in your view as possible. So if you're sitting in a chair looking straight this way, you're not going to see it. You want to lay down, get a lounge chair, look up at the sky. So, I mean, you're dedicating a amount of time to do this, but you get in your lounge chair, just try to keep focused on the sky. Don't look away. Don't look at a phone. So we go over ways
That's the hardest thing right there. Don't look at your phone.
Don't look at your phone. Yeah. So that's what we try to hit hard every time we talk about a meteor shower in our astronomy blogs and stories. We always try to, give people a set of instructions on if you're serious about seeing meteors. I mean, you got to dedicate at least a half an hour. Don't look at any light sources. Lay back and look at the sky and just enjoy the show.
Yeah, enjoy it. That's what it's all about. Again, what are the dates on that one?
The dates are the night of October 21st into the 22nd.
All right.
And like I said about the direction, you can look anywhere. The second most asked question that we get is what time to look.
Yeah.
And with the Orionids, the first half of the night is going to be better. So in the evening into the first couple hours of the night. The issue that we're going to have with the Orionids as we head into the night is the moon is going to rise around midnight.
Okay.
And when the moon rises, that's a lot of light. And it's easy for your eyes to kind of go right to the moon and look at the moon, and that's extra light pollution. So that'll make it harder to see some of the meteors.
It's kind of washing out?
Exactly, yeah. So you want to try to look for the Orionids before the moon rises, so before midnight.
Before midnight, so during that window.
That's a good one because most meteor showers are best viewed after midnight. So this one you don't have to stay up super late for or get up extra early.
So this is a great one for the kids. Take them out in the evening so they don't have to stay up super late. And hopefully they could see some shooting stars.
Would you recommend, Andy? You can stay up.
There you go. So you'd recommend, taking out with you, not just equipment wise, but you said a lawn chair, or there's a specific kind, a zero gravity one, or or does a blanket work?
Sure. Yeah, just a blanket. You can just lay down.
I'm trying to keep everything budget friendly here earlier. Now he's talking about.
I'm just looking for an excuse to buy a zero gravity chair.
I want to see the zero gravity chair. That sounds fun.
Or maybe just a hammock if it's not too obscured by a tree line.
You ideally you do want to lay down because then it relieves pressure on your neck. Because if you're sitting in a chair and just looking up for half an hour, your neck's going to start hurting after a while. Because that's happened to me.
Yeah.
So just laying down, and it might be tough just laying on the grass. Being elevated above it could be better because you get dew forming and stuff. You don't want to get wet. So
very cool. What else do we have to look forward to here this fall?
Well, we have a couple other meteor showers. Looking way ahead into November, we have the Leonids meteor shower, which peaks on Saturday, November 16th into Sunday, November 17th. However, this isn't going to be as good as the Orionids in October. This is because the moon's going to be up almost all night long. It's almost a full moon, And so with that full moon shining bright, it's going to be tough to see.
You're not going to see it live.
Exactly.
Like we just talked about. Okay.
You might still see some. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to try to find some, you could see some. Just don't look towards the moon.
Don't look towards the moon.
It's interesting because this is the meteor shower. The Leonids is the one that's produced historic meteor storms in the past. I mean, back in the 60s, it produced 100,000 meteors per hour all night. It's just insane. Like people viewing it out west, because it happened to be cloudy that night on the East Coast. People out west said they had to like hold on to the ground because it was so unnerving seeing the whole sky moving with meteors.
It probably like made it almost create that kind of illusion like you were moving.
Exactly. Yeah. So it almost made people dizzy just by
enough to freak you out.
Yeah. Wow, the world's coming to an end. So it's just funny. But now, I mean, there's no more meteor storms expected with this until at least 2030, and it's just basically a weak shower, 15 meters per hour. Not a whole lot. So,
but still, if you haven't seen something like that, 15 per hour is probably pretty good.
Oh yeah, more than your average night. So
it's amazing how many people I talk to, even up in age, that haven't seen a meteor. I mean, you just got to look at the sky any night. It doesn't have to be a meteor shower on any given night. You're at least going to see a couple per hour.
Yeah, just get out there, look at the night sky.
Get out there and look. Yep.
Just put some time aside for yourself, and do you find it to be almost therapeutic in a way?
It's very relaxing, and not looking at your cell phone to kind of preserve that night vision.
Right.
You're also kind of disconnecting from the world and just taking in the night sky, enjoying Mother Nature. And to me, it's just really relaxing.
I think everybody kind of needs that at certain times.
Just unplugging.
Yep.
It's all about unplugging. And, you sit there, and as your eyes adjust, you'll see more and more stars, too. So stars you wouldn't see just walking outside.
So you were talking about, both of you guys were talking about, like, turning the phones off, which is all well and good. In terms of one of those apps, when you point it up at the sky, is it just like a camera app? It's not like a lot of light hitting you in the face, or how would that work?
That's a good point. It is slightly counterintuitive that you're using your phone as an app, but I mean, most of the screens are dark.
Like they have like the dark mode or whatever?
Yeah, so that's like probably a good thing to line yourself up and know what you're looking at. But again, with the meteor shower, it's not too important where you're looking. So when you're just getting outside and you're hanging out with friends outside by a bonfire or something, you'd be like, hey, what are you looking at? I don't know. These smartphone apps are really cool. So,
and it only takes like, a couple seconds. What's that app called, by the way?
I use Star Walk. It's called. Had to pay a couple of bucks for it, but it's really good. So,
yeah. And there's some free ones out there too. I have one called Sky View, another one called Star Chart. And so if you just look up, Sky Chart or Night Sky, there's plenty out there on the App Store. Some you have to pay for that have extra features. Some of them are free. So it's kind of up to you what you want to try, but they're all pretty much the same.
So there's what you're saying is there is a resource for everybody out there.
Essentially, yeah. And if you don't have a smartphone, you could just go online and look up star charts online. And I mentioned earlier that website earthsky.org. Like I said, every night they have a star chart that shows you what to look for and things to highlight.
And another site I use a lot, staratlas.com, and it works on your phone too. You can program anytime, and it'll show you what you're going to see in the night sky. So you can look 30 years in the future, because that's a cool thing about astronomy.
Cool. Yeah.
It's so much different than meteorology. I mean, there's no forecasting involved. Things are going to happen. Like the math doesn't lie with astronomy, just because with the moon's orbit. The moon's orbit isn't going to change unless there's some large object that's going to have enough gravity to shift it, and that would mean there's a large object nearby, and that would be pretty bad news.
So that's kind of like your constant, like that doesn't change.
Exactly.
Like, so you can so that makes it easier that you can look that far out.
So you can see what the night sky is going to look at, years and years down the road. Not to mention days and weeks. So
that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic.
Any other big events that are happening here that we can kind of look for?
Well, also the Geminids meteor shower. It's some people consider it the most active meteor shower of the year. I like the Perseids more because it happens in August when it's warm.
Okay, yeah.
The Geminids is in mid-December.
Okay, so it could be a little chilly then. Yeah.
If it's clear, it's probably going to be cold, but it's a very active shower. 150 meteors per hour expected. So that's a good one to see in the southern states, where it's more like likely to be clear than the north.
However, this year it's going to be a bad year for the Geminids because it's happening right around the full moon.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So it's kind of similar.
The moon keeps
the moon is a problem
it's
with a lot
screwing
of the
everything up.
showers.
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah. But I don't think that should scare anybody away because it produces a lot of bright meteors. You're going to see them whether or not the moon's out or not.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the Perseids this year that we were able to see plenty despite the moonlight.
Like what we said earlier, too, even if the moon's up, just look in a part of the sky.
Just try not to look at it.
Yeah, where the moon's not. So if the moon's, off to the east, look to the west and try to keep that out of your field of view.
It's easy enough. It's pretty. So if we go through it then for beginners, the naked eye is more than okay,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But you would also maybe recommend to start out binoculars. Okay?
Yep.
And then the next step up would be a basic telescope.
Just a basic one. And is there any certain criteria for magnification that those kind of telescopes have, or it's just something that's just the most basic?
Yeah, I mean, they magnify 50 to 100 times what the naked eye sees, and I think that's pretty basic. And you just go up from there. I mean, you can get some really nice telescopes, and if you want to spend, say, $1,000, you can get a telescope. Basically, you can just say, "I want to see the Andromeda Galaxy," and it points you right at it.
I've seen those.
It has a motorized mount that takes you to it.
Those are amazing.
Cool, yeah,
it's got the remote. Those things are neat. How much do those usually set you back?
You can spend $1,000 if you're going to spend $1,000. I mean, you can get a really nice one though. So that kind of you could probably get one for a little less than that. I mean, that has a motorized mount that can has a little small computer in it that will take you to whatever you program into it. So.
You don't have one of those, do you, Brian?
No. I'm saving up for one, though.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to check that out when you finally get that.
I'll let you know in a couple of years.
Okay. Well,
Look, he didn't say he was going to go out and buy one. He said, just let him know when you get yours, Brian.
Before we wrap up, let's talk real quick about AccuWeather Astronomy and the stuff that you guys do for the astronomy blogs. Brian, we'll start with you.
So every month we put out a story highlighting the big astronomy events coming up in the upcoming month. So usually right at the tail end of one month, we'll put out our outlook for the upcoming month, including meteor showers, if there's full moons that are happening that are kind of out of the ordinary, weird planetary alignments. So we highlight all those so you can mark them on your calendar at the beginning of the month. And then we'll write another piece about it as it's coming up to remind you about it and give you more details. And we're posting all of that on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Just look up AccuAstronomy, and we're posting all the information there, and even a couple.
It really is a great follow for anybody out there who's not following it right now.
Oh, definitely,
I love it.
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter. Twitter, we send out slightly more frequent updates, but we'll do plenty on Facebook as well for the major events. And all our stories are tailored towards what you're going to see without a lot of equipment. It's all about just going outside and looking up.
See, that's very helpful. That's very helpful to a guy like myself, who just wants to maybe just take a little bit of time and go out and look at the night sky.
And borrow other people's equipment.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, feel free to message us on those social media accounts. We'll get back to you and help you get off, to a good stargazing experience.
And one more time, Dave, the website, the URL for AccuWeather Astronomy, where would we find that?
Yeah, you can find the blog at just AccuWeather.com. Click on blogs, you'll find the astronomy blog. Facebook is just AccuWeather Astronomy, and same with Twitter. It's just AccuWeather Astronomy on Twitter. So, all those are good sources, especially the social media pages. And you'll see occasional articles from Brian on AccuWeather.com. He's been pushing to get a lot of these stories more into the mainstream, mixed with the weather stories, and it's interesting that sometimes when the weather's quiet, astronomy stories do better than the weather stories on the website. So it's an important thing, and I'm glad people are interested in it, and we're here to provide as much information as we can give.
Yeah, and we are meteorologists, so we give you the cloud forecast too.
Exactly.
You'll be able to
That's
see
a good
it.
You're getting all the information there that you need.
Like leading up to these main events, that's what we do. We provide the cloud forecasts, and there's no other outlets that are providing that. They're talking about the event, which we do as well, but we tell you where it's going to be cloudy. And
you get that little bit of extra.
Yeah,
exactly. Insider information.
Cool. Yep. That's all free too.
Yep.
That's fantastic. So we'd like to get you guys back in here again sometime soon to talk a little bit more about astronomy. I think this was I learned something
regularly.
here. I absolutely learned something today. And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty excited to actually just go across the street from where I live to a field and just look up. Because if that's all I need to do, I should have been doing this a long time ago. Really, I mean, you take the night sky, you tend to take it for granted, but there's really a lot of beauty in there, isn't there?
It sure is, absolutely. Yep.
And it's always there. It's not going anywhere.
We only touch the surface. There's other things like auroras and comets to look at, but
we could do another Weather 101. We can define some of those terms. So, well, Dave Samuel and as well as Brian Lada, guys, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today to tell us all about astronomy.
Absolutely. Happy to talk about it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
And we will be back with a brand new episode next week. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your favorite shows. For Ken Prell, I'm Andy Robb. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to subscribe to AccuWeather's Everything Under the Sun, giving you the stories behind the weather and so much more. New episodes every Thursday. Just search for AccuWeather on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or visit AccuWeather.com/podcast.